consultant. Just read this passage really quick. The hiring of a consultant per resolution agreement does not absolve the district of its responsibility to take corrective action to remedy the identified disparities where possible. It's unacceptable to put the weight of change on the shoulders of a contractor when you have the authority right now to institute policies, as you are elected to eliminate practices harmful to students and deployed in a manner that violate federal and state law. In fact, it is a dereliction of duty to acknowledge that these disparities exist, possess the authority to address them, and then use a federal agency that identifies the offenses as cover to move with deliberate indifference to correct them. As we saw that they did hire a consultant for 3 years. I mean, so I wonder, does that take them 3 years to implement a program, or do they wait for the results afterward? And the consultant is being paid $78,000 over a 3-year period. I mean, I don't know how much work.
Yeah, let me try and see if I get Walter.
You can get.
You want to put on your earphone?
Sure. Yeah, I hear the phone ringing. Doesn't sound like he's answering.
The Google subscriber you have called is not available.
That's not happening tonight.
Well, at least we tried. Let me see if I have another number for Walter Fields.
So what do you want to ask, Walter?
I just want to talk about the article. I mean, you know, if he wrote the article, does he think anything is going to come out of it? You know, what does he see? What does he think? You know, I mean, does he have information that maybe we don't know that he can share with us? Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, I used to have his home number, but I don't have it. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's just, I mean, you know, they do these type of things all the time. You know, I called Fred Profeta here one time. You know, and, you know, he was nice enough to actually, you know, talk about what was going on. But I think to me, you know, this stuff is basically, you know, the Board of Education just have to step up to the plate and decide that, you know, I don't think they have to wait for that diversity consultant to come back with any findings. You know, they should just step up to the plate and do what they got to do. And start making changes.
Well, the woman I was speaking to last night went to the AP parents meeting last month. I believe it was in January. Yeah, it was in the end of January, beginning of January.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was in the big. I remember that day because TJ came by. So it was before the Martin Luther King program, and you know that night she said that some departments, every department had its own policy on how to admit students, you know, and what the criteria was to admit students into the program.
So there's no universal
It
policy.
didn't seem like there was any universal policy.
So that's
so she said that, you know, the English department and social studies department and the science department all had a different criteria.
That's a good place to start.
What do you mean with?
Make it uniform. Uniformity is good. Because, you know, one standard is over here and another standard over there. That means to say that, you know, you can get in, you could go 1 for 4 as a matter of fact. You go 1 for 4. You can meet these standards over here, right? And have the same standards in another class and don't meet the standards for another class. For example, you can have high standards in math, right? The same type of standards in social studies, but you don't meet the requirement for the social studies. So if it's uniformed, you know, I mean, all these things are pretty easy. I don't think all these things are really difficult, but I think we make it difficult. The school district makes it really difficult. They can simplify all these things, really. You see, part of the problem is transparency. That's part of the problem. And to me, the school district should give the numbers, send the numbers home to all the parents. Send it in an email.
Home? What numbers?
Regarding AP classes, leveling, everything. What is the breakdown? This is what it is.
It's not. I mean, and I don't know because I do not have a child in this district any longer, so I can't tell you what kind of notices I've had or, that come to parents. But those things are probably on the district website, what goes out in a backpack. No, I'm sure they are.
No, they're not.
And so people...
We can go on the district website. They don't put that stuff.
People have to be desirous to sign up for these courses. Now, how many people are turned down? I guess that's one of the questions that the consultant's going to find out the answer to. How many people apply? How many of those people who apply are, and what's the demography of those people? And what was the criteria set for them? The discussion, a real honest discussion that the public and whomever needs to be had is should everybody be involved. I mean, some teaching is back in the day when I was like really involved in this, I didn't understand because we had to come up with a policy. So our school policy is social studies grade is 50% of our test, 20% classwork, 30% homework. The math people, I'd be 90% test, 10% homework. The English people might be, 70%, 30%. Every department had its own, way of judging, ascertaining how a person got a grade. And everyone had to stick to that. But, back in 2000 something when I brought this issue, I think the superintendent was like, really? They didn't even know that it was that way. So it wasn't even anything planned. So when you go to their back to school night, each teacher couldn't say, well, our department policy is A, B, and C. And then later on, maybe a year after that, then I started seeing that written out where it was every department had the same policy. But back then, every teacher had their own policy. So it can make the grade very subjective. Well, you didn't do any homework, so we'll fail you. Well, I passed all my tests. Well, you still didn't do any homework, so you're going to fail. Not a low grade, but you're going to fail. So... all these different policies from all these different departments. I don't know if you can say across the board. Maybe math people would want 90% of your grade to be worth a test. Maybe a social science teacher would want 90% or 50% of your grade to be based on a test.
You know the thing I had a problem with last night? If I was a teacher, that you would tell me that 10% of my review is based on students in my class doing good on the PARCC test. I think that is, and I don't want to hear the comparison to New York. That New York wants to go 40 or 50%.
You don't want to hear that.
No, I don't want to hear that.
You don't want to hear that from the district.
Yeah, from the district.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to hear that. To me, that if you are gonna, so let me ask a question though. Suppose you're teaching a low-level class.
Yes, I know, Anselm. I've got to deal with all this. In the past years,
but
not so much this year, but in the past year, all of these different programs or designs from the state via the federal government or otherwise have come down on teachers. Teachers have a rough time. So you're told that, X percentage of your, whether you're satisfied. And back in the good old days, it was just a satisfactory and unsatisfactory. Now you've got developing, not developed. I'm sorry, I don't know all of these, and my mind's not turned on yet. It probably will in a few minutes. But different categories of, what type of teacher you are. And much of it, or percentage of it, is based on how well students do on these tests. And this is the question we've all had. Well, so-and-so's got all honor students.
That's right.
So-and-so has all special ed students. Well, so-and-so has a mixed class. Or so-and-so is teaching something they've never taught before. So these are part of the stresses and strains. You've got to reach out to parents. You're supposed to call parents because now even you're also penalized when students don't show up for a test. So if you've got a student who is a long-term absence and they don't show up for a test, but your name is next to their name when it comes down to taking a Regents exam, and they don't show up, that's a bad mark against you. So you're not only supposed to be teaching, you're supposed to also do the social work and also do the job of a truant officer and hunt down this kid and make sure they show up for the test. They have teachers in some schools calling parents or calling children in the morning. Get up, Bobby. You have a test today. Or they'll do a blast and send this to every kid in the school through the phone. Everyone has a test tomorrow, your Regents exam or your PSAT. Come in tomorrow, blah, 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 get a good night's rest. So these are some of the stipulations that have been handed down by the state, just the same as this 95% via the federal government in order to close these gaps. If it were not for these tests, though, we would not know if there was an achievement gap, right? So what is a gap? And we've talked about this before.
I don't think I need that test to tell me if there's an achievement gap.
No, you individually. We're not talking about you individually.
No, overall.
Yes, but there's
when all of those kids are in the lower levels.
No. There's no other way to determine. I mean, there is another way. The problem is, I see this every day. I have a class, my one AP class that I have. I'll give them work. Do this, answer these questions, hand this in. I'll look at the homework. I'll see an answer, an incorrect answer. What's the FEC? The Federal Elections Commission, monitors the spending by, interest groups given to different politicians for their campaigns. Okay. I see that again. The next one, the FEC gives money to campaigns. And then I'll see it again. The FEC gives money to campaigns. So one person did the work and 7 other people copied it. And so now, if you don't read that, which many people don't read the work that they get, you just put a check. Bob did his homework. Sally did his homework. Arjun did. Erica did her homework, and they just get a check. And all those students get a 90 out of the class when they really only know 65% of the information. So now you get a standardized test one day that everybody takes, and you're trying to make it as impossible as possible to get people to cheat. And now we get to see what you really know. And so we see that even if you had, I'm sorry I didn't finish it, but you really get to see what people know and what they don't know. So the test itself and Common Core itself does not cause an achievement gap, but it'll definitely show if there is a gap. It will show that. Now, grade-wise, I had a class one year of 9th graders, and I looked up the information on them. All of them, the highest kid read at a 5th grade level, and the lowest read at a 2nd grade level. But the average reading level for this 9th grade class was 3rd grade. So all of them do the work. Some of them do it a little bit better. But I have to give them books that are at a 6th grade level because none of them can read at a 9th grade level. So yes, they are able to get a 90 in a 6th grade class. Am I giving you 90 for 6th grade, or am I giving you a 90 for 9th grade?
So the school district allowed social promotion then?
Yeah, in this particular class I saw, and I went back. I mean, this class was giving me hell. I went back and looked at their 8th grade stuff. Many of them failed at least 3 classes in the 8th grade. And they were pushed up ahead anyway.
Social promotion at its best.
So now those kids taking an exam, a Regents exam, they've been working. So maybe now they were no longer on the 3rd grade level. Now they're reading at a 6th grade level, but the test is put at a 10th grade level. So, if these things didn't happen, if there were no testing, I wouldn't know that Bobby reads at a 2nd grade level. If there was no testing at all, we wouldn't know what we are working with. And this is one thing I like about testing.
Well, you could test for that, but not to test for the levels. But anyway, maybe you want to go to maplewoodian.com because there is the school district report on maplewoodian.com. The school district report, it tells you if you go to maplewoodian.com and then you go to maplewoodian.com and go down, you're going to see state report card